The way, for example, the Jewish people keep the Torah. There are things they practice or have as commandments that are not found in the Torah, that are not found in the Hebrew Bible. So that's the point where we should be seeking to obey what is truly the word of the eternal instead of what is the word of man. So, for example, this is in Isaiah where it says, with their lips they honor me, but their heart is far, far from me, and teaching as doctrine the commandments of men, right? So that has always been the mistake, more than anything, of man wanting to add some things to what is the word of the eternal. And the Torah itself says it. It says that you shall not add anything to what has been given, nor shall you take anything away from it. Right? That is for now my comment.
I understand what you're saying.
If you allow me to tell you the approach of Judaism, when we talk about mitzvot are precepts, like laws, but we make a distinction in two categories. There are mitzvot deoraita, which are from the Torah, but there are also derabanan, from the sages. That's what we call them. We distinguish that very, very clearly. We know that, as you say, the laws of the Torah are very clear, but the derabanan, the ones from the sages, are bland. The fence, just imagine, well, let me tell you, in the north of Israel, there are minefields, because after the war against the Syrians left many mines, and Israel decided not to deactivate them. So what does Israel do, let's say, so that tourists can go to the north of Israel? You put up a fence, but you don't put the fence right next to the mine. You put it hundreds of meters away from the mine. Why? If someone jumps the fence, they won't get blown up. But if there's some distance, they might. There are things where we decide to put up a fence to keep ourselves away from the original prohibition. For example, it's written, Leva shel gadi b'chalevimo, do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Also, we put up a fence to remember such a thing, because nowadays who takes a young goat and its mother and cooks them together? No one, right? I mean, but we do have how do you say, a fence that reminds us of that law and keeps us away from breaking it. But we know that's not the actual law of the Torah itself, but it does help. It keeps us away. It's something like that. I understand your point. However, if someone wanted to fulfill God's word, there are still many things missing. For example, the temple. It's not possible. God commands us to make sacrifices. It's an order. So for that, we need a temple, and so on. But the Jewish view is that eventually, and in this aspect, you're right, Christian, we still can't fulfill the Torah. I mean, 100%, because there's no temple. When there is a temple, and the prophet spoke about there being a temple, we'll restore those kinds of practices that you say we should be observing.
A question, Jacob, regarding the third temple, it's not going to be Ezekiel's, right? Because the measurements of Ezekiel's temple are 15 times bigger than the second temple. What is the idea that the institution has, about building the third temple? How is that planned to be done? In the same place? What do you think could happen for that place to be vacated so that you can set up the temple there?
I'm not sure. As the pastor said, we believe the temple's measurements and architecture match those in the end of Ezekiel. Here's an interesting fact. At the end of Ezekiel, it says, the Messiah offers sacrifices for his sins, implying he sins and atones. That's a detail not many Christians have noticed. That the Messiah does sin. In any case, yes, we believe that the temple will be like in Ezekiel. And yes, it's true. What do we do with everything? There's a mosque, there's a neighborhood. What do we do? Well, when the day comes, we'll know.
Well, I heard that when the Messiah comes, the one you are waiting for, he will give the instruction and correct those plans. Because according to the measurements given by Ezekiel, if we do the math, there were 4 types of cubits. One was 37 centimeters, another was 52, another was 52. But if we use an average of 50 centimeters per cubit, well, it's 15 times bigger. They're going to have to walk, inside, to bring the sacrifices. It's immense. It's huge.
Yes, in fact, Maimonides talks about that. Yes, Maimonides says that the third temple, should be as big as it can be made. That is, if they have to build this soccer stadium, the Jewish exegetes understand that, yes, it will be very big.
How interesting. So, Jacob, more or less, I've seen some of your videos many times, and forgive me if I interrupt you with one of the questions. because I also want to thank you for coming on the channel.
No, I thank you, because you're not as harsh and aggressive as I usually experience with many, let's say, people.
The thing is, look, for example, wars. A lot of people die. In fact, the first war was because of religion, and the last one will be because of religion. How do you see this? Because this can't change, it can't stop, and it won't stop unless there is a new world order that says, well, because of religions, there's no more persecution or anything, but that's still far off. But Cain kills Abel because of religion, and the end, too, according to what they say, will also be because of religion. How do you see this?
I don't think so. I think it's because of politics. In fact, the Midrash explains that Cain killed Abel for 3 reasons: because of politics, because of economics, and yes, also because of religion. The Messiah comes as expected. And in fact, that's what Jeremiah chapter 31 says, that when the days of the Messiah come and all that, people won't have to tell their brother, know God, because everyone will know me, it says. Everyone will already know the Messiah has arrived. That is to say, it's not possible for the Messiah to arrive and not everyone to have noticed. That means the issue of religious division will not exist in the Messianic era. What might exist is perhaps a political debate, which obviously we can see. The end of Zechariah discusses topics like the nations, noting there will still be political fragmentation, which is why the Messiah will judge between the nations, because he's the one who mostly resolves the political conflicts. So I think that, as Pastor puts it, in the end, the solution will come more from the political side of the world than from the religious or even the economic side. Even in rabbinic literature, there is a discussion about a Mashiach ben Yosef and a Mashiach ben David, one who comes through economics, another through politics. But in the end, the one who has the upper hand in argumentation is the Messiah, who deals with politics.
So, may I, Pastor?
Yes, go ahead, ask him.
No. Based on what he's saying about Jeremiah and that he believes everyone will know the Messiah and that the Messiah will judge. That's what Christianity is. Correct, that we believe that Jesus is the judge, that he himself affirms it already in John 5, that the Father gave all judgment to the Son. We believe and are waiting for a judgment. That is what Christianity is. In that respect, it seems to me that the Messiah Jesus fulfills all these requirements. Why? Because in what part of the world do they not know about the existence of Jesus? I mean, there is no greater force than Christianity in that sense, right? I mean, Christianity, it's, let's say, the religion with the most followers. And even if they are not, whether they are Christians or not, the figure of Christ is the most well-known figure in the history of humanity. I mean, you can't even compare Moses or any other prophet to Christ. That's irrefutable. Historically, there is also no figure more well-known than Christ, nor anyone about whom more has been written than Christ. So I think that the prophecies too, when analyzed in their context, said that God, that the Messiah would give knowledge as the pure waters cover the sea. So I think that Christ came to fulfill those prophecies, first of all, regarding salvation for the forgiveness of sins, just as the prophet said, and that there are prophecies. We believe that in a second coming, the resurrection of the dead, the judgment, the redemption of the human race, in the sense that we believe God is going to make new heavens, new earth. In other words, he is going to regenerate everything. This system has fallen, right? That sin has, I understand that you don't believe in, let's put it this way, a spiritual salvation itself, like we Christians believe, or am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But nevertheless, what you say about, well, if you read the prophecies, in fact, there are many things that Jesus did not fulfill. I began discussing peace among nations, as Isaiah does, noting that someone claimed to be the Messiah, but since there hasn't been world peace for 2,000 years, the Messiah hasn't truly come. I understand that in order to solve this problem of having a so-called Messiah who didn't fulfill many of the aspects the prophets talked about, the way to get out of this problem was to say, relax, don't worry, there will be a second coming. In the first coming, he fulfilled verses we took out of context, mistranslated or quoted partially. He will fulfill the remaining prophecies in the second coming. That's essentially how I see the narrative of Christianity. Personally, I'm not concerned with the number of followers, since that's the ad populum fallacy. That is, the number doesn't make you right. It doesn't give you the truth. Islam is a religion that has existed for half the time of Christianity and has half as many followers. That is, it has an equal rate of growth, and maybe it will be even greater soon. Christianity, we live in a time when churches are emptier while Islam has a growing demographic. That doesn't mean Islam is the truth. One thing has nothing to do with the other. The Egyptian religion lasted 1,000 years longer than Christianity has so far. And even so, that doesn't mean it's the truth. So about the topic of how the prophecies and all that will unfold, we believe it will be one Messiah, one coming. It's all written, and that's where I see the difficulty. Do you understand me?
I would like to ask you, what is your view of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist, the anti-Armilos? What does it mean to you?
Okay, we don't believe there is an anti-Messiah, Armilos. Yes, there has been discussion about what that figure means. It's a figure, let's say, in Jewish literature, who is the one that kills Mashiach ben Yosef. Armilos the wicked. He's called Armilos Harasha. And he is the one who ends the idea of Mashiach ben Yosef. There are those who have said that maybe Armilos is a way of saying Romulus. Romulus is the father of Rome, for example, the founder of Rome. There are those who have even said that in modern times it's Romulus during the Second World War. Interpretations. But the idea of Armilos is that there is a force that tries to stop the people of Israel from returning to their land in the national sense. That's what it actually refers to.
Yes, let's go. Let's go. Let's not crowd Jacob too much. Ask one at a time. Just a brief question. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Uh-huh. Go ahead, son.
And good evening, Jacob.
Thank you, Jess.
Well, I wanted to ask you, the Eternal gave a letter of divorce to the 10 tribes, right? And then he prophesied that he would go to gather them, and this time it would be forever, and that they would never be separated from him again. But in the law of Deuteronomy, it says that when you give a letter of divorce, you can't marry that same woman again, right? After she has been adulterous. And we see that these 10 tribes are called adulterous, right? Because they committed spiritual adultery. So if, you don't believe in the Messiah, whom we believe is Jesus, because we know that Jesus came for that. That's what his death was for. That's why we believe he is divine, because he was the one who had to die so that law would no longer apply to him. And now he could remarry those 10 tribes, his bride, to whom he had given a letter of divorce without violating that commandment found in Deuteronomy 24. What do you think about that, or how do you see it?
I mean, it even talks about that. I mean, he's the one who solves that. At first, it talks about rejecting, but in the end, he forgives. That's really how Hosea begins.
Yes, because he gave her a certificate of divorce, right? So she supposedly can't remarry if he already did that. But
But I mean, he takes it to the extreme. I mean, literally, God tells him, marry a prostitute, something very extreme. So, yes, God also says, and then tells him, no, now leave all that stuff, right? So, yes, there are things that even God, at this point in the dialogue with Hosea, God tells the prophet Hosea, and then Hosea says, well, that's it. Abandon those children because they are from a prostitute. And Hosea says to him, like, why would I do that? They're my children. No, I can't. So, and God answers Hosea, right? There's the answer. Israel is also my child, my son, and I won't abandon him. Divorce letter, no divorce letter. Lo ruhama, ruhama to me, not my beloved, not my people. Yes, they are my beloved, they are my people. I don't abandon her. That's like the point, the beginning of Hosea.
May I ask a question? Good evening, Jacob. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Anthony.
Thanks for your support, Anthony.
Uh-huh. I want you to tell me your opinion about what do you think about what's been happening lately? that the Gentiles have an interest in learning about the Torah, and not only learning about the Torah, but also wanting to live their faith according to the Torah. And do you agree that, so to speak, a Gentile would want to keep, for example, Shabbat?
I have a question. I don't think this is history's best time.
Taking into account what Isaiah 56 says, from verse 2 to 6.
It says this. It says, I don't know, Anthony, your question is really good. I think we are living in the best time in human history, where finally there are people who truly want to keep the Torah. That didn't happen before. Previously, the rebels aimed to eliminate the Torah. Even so, maybe, I don't know if you've heard some things from my page. There is something we call the Noahide laws. That is, there is a legislative system for non-Jews. The topic of Shabbat is a debated subject. Khatam Sofer believes non-Jews can observe Shabbat in a specific way. So in that regard, if one were to follow Khatam Sofer's opinion, okay, well, the non-Jew could. Regarding what you quote from Isaiah 56, it is one of the most misquoted passages about Isaiah. There it speaks about Nilvim el Hashem, there it speaks about converts. It does not speak, let's say, about non-Jews. It actually speaks about people from the nations who converted and joined Israel and are now part of the people of Israel. And that's why they must observe Shabbat, because now they are part of the people of Israel. But the question is, what do you do? I think it's about non-Jews. That is, people who are not part of Israel. Non-Jews, as I mentioned to you, have their own legal system, which is also very important. When people ask me, what if a non-Jew wants to observe the Torah? Well, Maimonides writes that if a Noahide wants to observe a commandment, they can do so. And in fact, they cannot be stopped. But the condition is that he must be a Noahide. Why? Because a Noahide is someone who knows his identity. It's not a person, a non-Jew who is a Noahide. That is a person who is not Jewish and knows the importance he has as a non-Jew is someone who is not going to pretend to be an Israelite, let's say, and put on a talit and start dressing up with payot. So that's the point of why a Noahide in particular could fulfill some precept of Israel, and you can't stop him. That's exactly what Maimonides says. So to answer your question, I think yes, he could, as long as he understands his role and his identity, that he doesn't look down on himself and doesn't think or pretend that he has to be Jewish for something, right? Non-Jews also have value. You also have your own way of being connected with.
You were already telling me that, if I understood your answer. So in order for me to keep Shabbat like a Jew does, I would have to become a proselyte and get circumcised.
Sit.
And where does the issue of the Noahides come from? Because I've read the Torah and I don't see that anywhere.
So we consider that it's written in Genesis 9 after they come out of the ark. God makes that covenant with them.
One last question and I'll finish. Do you consider Noah to be part of the people of Israel?
No. The people of Israel came much later. Israel is a grandson of Abraham.
And what about Abraham? Do you consider Abraham to be part of the people of Israel?
No, it wouldn't make sense. Israel is Jacob, Abraham's grandson. Israel comes after Abraham.
So, because I understand that many Jews believe that Abraham was the first Jew. Do you think from the people of Israel?
In fact, not even he. When it comes to the people of Israel, the term Jew isn't even in the Torah.
So you don't believe that Abraham was the first Jew? Come on.
Of course not.
Anthony, Jacob is messing with you, and you don't realize it.
No. I want to know what he thinks. Let him answer. Don't answer for him.
No, it makes sense. Yes, Abraham was Jewish, but it's just that based on.
Allow me, based on what Jacob said, he's bringing up something that's true, that Judaism doesn't believe that Gentiles have to keep the Torah. I understand you, Jacob, what you're telling me. What you're implying is that the Torah was given in an Israelite context for a nation, or am I wrong?
Well, that's what the Bible says exactly, yes.
Because look at what I'm going to quote. The Gentile who observes the Sabbath deserves death. This is in Sanhedrin 58b, page 399. And here also a Gentile who studies the Torah deserves death. Sanhedrin 59.
We provide, but that's not in the Torah. That's what the document you quoted says, not the Torah.
Yes, it's true. The Torah doesn't state it explicitly. It only says Shabbat was given to the people of Israel. But if you keep reading there, it says, a non-Jew who studies the Torah is punishable by death. Wow. So, what do we do? I'm not going to be left without Torah, right? The Gemara goes on to say, if you keep reading, it says, but how is it possible if the sages also said that a non-Jew who studies the Torah is compared to the high priest? How is this a contradiction? Is he facing the death penalty, or is he the high priest? That seems contradictory, right? No, it's about those who lack agility. A non-agile person studying non-agile laws is likened to the high priest. That is what that whole section you're reading is pointing to, is that the non-Jew should be a non-agile person. That's where the point is going. There's no death penalty. So, what about a non-Jew who stays in bed all Shabbat sleeping? Oh! Did you keep Shabbat? You didn't break any rules? Death penalty just for falling asleep? That doesn't make sense. The Talmud's purpose is to encourage people to follow the Noahide laws.